Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the curious report that Rishi Sunak does not seem all that bothered about the UK joining the Horizon programme, which is a huge research programme which the UK absolutely needs to be part of if we've any hope of retaining our position as one of the world's scientific powers. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So this particular report initially blew me away. Few things really surprise me these days, but this one really blindsided me. Almost a week ago, Rishi Sunak announced his agreement for the practical implementation of the Northern Ireland Protocol. This solved a number of problems for him. It meant that he could drop the Northern Ireland Protocol bill, which he's now going to. It exposed the fact that Boris Johnson has very little support for his return in the parliamentary party. That is all to the good of Rishi Sunak. But it also unlocked other benefits as well, and the most immediate was re-entry into the Horizon programme. The UK government under Boris Johnson had negotiated access to Horizon with the EU. Then we were frozen out when we started breaking our agreement under the Northern Ireland Protocol. At first glance, you could look at this decision by Sunak as wanting to demonstrate his hard Brexit chops, and indeed it may well be that. But I'm not sure how much sense it really makes. Like, over the past month, Rishi Sunak has started to worry some hard Brexiteers. First, there was the secret conference to discuss how the UK can work more closely with the EU. This was, that set the cat amongst the pigeons due to the 180-degree pivot that it represented. For 6 years, the government under both May and Johnson adopted a general policy of replicating every form of cooperation that we had with our European neighbours and replacing them with either our own much more expensive version or trying to get the same sort of thing from other countries at the end of the world. All of a sudden, this policy was in the bin and we were back to working with our neighbours again. A negotiated settlement on the Northern Ireland Protocol soon followed. We must consider that there are plenty of Brexit supporters who've got no issue with the EU at all. They just didn't feel that the UK should be part of it for whatever reason. But there are a small but very, very influential and noisy minority who absolutely hate the EU, and they want nothing more than for it to cease to exist. Ironically, of course, Brexit has actually strengthened the EU. We still get the stories of the EU being like a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever from collapse. I get that regularly in the comments, but I think it's working on fewer people. But it is these Brexiteers who want nothing to do with the EU and absolutely did not want a formal Conservative policy of cooperation with the EU on anything. They may accept the Northern Ireland Protocol as a battle which cannot be won. But something like Horizon, well, they can lose that. It will harm us economically to lose it. But it won't harm the Brexiteers politically because we'll never see it. You won't be able to prove it to someone. After all, you don't miss what you never had. So there is a sense in which, you can see why, after actively working on ways to cooperate with the EU, that Sunak wants to pretend that he still adopts a generally arm's length approach to them, on other areas just to keep the Brexiteers in line. But choosing Horizon would be an odd one. For a start, it risks long-term economic harm for the UK. We are already going to struggle as we enter the next era of manufacturing, which is essentially about green technology. The three powers in this new age are the United States, China and the EU. We used to be one of the main driving forces within one of those powers. Now we're not. But Horizon was something that even Johnson's government wanted. Johnson's government was clearly the most insanely hard Brexit of the lot. And we're not going to get a government with such an extreme Brexit mindset in the future. Yet even Boris Johnson wanted the UK to be part of Horizon. He pulled us out of so many other schemes without any coherent reason for doing so, including Erasmus, but even he said, no, we need to be in Horizon. So much so that when the EU froze us out in response to our failure to comply with the Northern Ireland Protocol, Boris Johnson didn't just go, well, I wasn't that bothered anyway. No, he got the government to begin legal action against the EU. So why would Sunak now sound like he's cool on the idea of something that even the extreme Brexiteer himself wanted? The only logical conclusion I have been able to come up with is that Horizon is something that Johnson wanted, but not his ERG backers. I can well see how the ERG would not really care that much about Horizon, so they'd be fine with Johnson negotiating membership. Maybe Horizon was the ERG's concession to Johnson in return for pursuing their more general extreme Brexit agenda. And now maybe their concession to Sunak is the Windsor framework, but he feels he might have to sacrifice Horizon for it. Or at the very least make uncertain noises about it until he sees which way the wind blows. Our re-entry is not going to be unlocked immediately anyway. It's going to take a little bit of time. So Sunak has that time. He may be waiting to see if there's leverage in using Horizon as a bargaining chip with the ERG later on. Or maybe waiting to see if they continue to weaken and so present less opposition to European cooperation in time. I'll be discussing more on that tomorrow if the news allows. But there has to be some reason why Sunak is sounding sceptical on the benefits of Horizon. Because the benefits are obvious. Indeed, how could it not be obvious that we should continue to attract some of the best scientists in the world to the UK by participating in some of the most urgent and exciting research taking place right now? Scientific research is an incredibly useful sector within our economy. We get massive returns from it. That Sunak is trying to sound like he might not even want it, whether it is exactly as I'm speculating or not, must be some form of appeasement to the Brexiteers within his ranks. Because there is zero way that Sunak genuinely isn't sure about the benefits. And this is very telling for a question commonly being asked of myself and other Brexit commentators. Does Sunak's deal and general approach represent a sea change? Are the Tories now going to start moving further and faster in reversing Brexit, leaving Labour stuck in the mud, so to speak? No. The Windsor framework is very good news for Labour. They are delighted. They haven't been caught out. Consider that Starmer had already offered his votes before he'd even read it. Hadn't even read it. Not really that unusual. He didn't need the details. Whatever agreement Sunak was going to get would have two obvious consequences. First, it would stop the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill, which is effectively a trade war declaration, in its tracks. Second, it would have the effect of softening the pre-existing protocol, which it has done. The only people opposed to either of those outcomes are Brexiteers, and extreme Brexiteers at that. So it was safe enough for Starmer to commit Labour votes. But unlike Sunak, Labour don't have to stop there. Labour are in favour of settling the Northern Ireland Protocol. They are in favour of rejoining Horizon. They're in favour of forming a security agreement. They're on record as saying that their government will unilaterally agree to align standards with the EU and then use that to pursue a softening of trade barriers, not just between Britain and Northern Ireland, but between Britain and the much larger market that we export to and import from. And Starmer can do all this. Can do all of it without having to keep checking with his MPs if they're cool with it, because almost all of them can be relied upon to support it enthusiastically. Whereas what this maddening report on Horizon hesitancy demonstrates in large unfriendly letters is that Sunak is unable to do anything helpful without having to spend time, weeks, trying to make sure he's got the numbers to support it. Consider that the Windsor framework was announced a week later than reportedly planned, because Sunak took longer than expected to get the support he needed within his party. And any time he does anything useful, he is expending political capital to do so. People talked about the risks for Sunak with this. So now maybe we're thinking, now that he's suggesting that maybe we shouldn't be in Horizon, that is an indication that even this obvious benefit to the country would require political capital for him to achieve. And at the moment, he might be running quite low on it. So for now, he's leaving it open as to whether we even take part. Rishi Sunak may or may not want to reverse some of the more damaging aspects of Brexit. I really don't know. We can see that he's more pragmatic, but I don't know what he wants from Brexit. The majority of Tory MPs may also be starting to appreciate the downsides of the extreme Brexit that they didn't realise beforehand, and maybe they want to scale it back a bit. I don't know that either. What I do know is that even a Conservative Prime Minister who, if we make the assumption that he wants to seek a much closer relationship with the EU, will take a lot longer to do so than a Labour Prime Minister who is explicitly stating that that's what he wants. And that they want to do it because, The time it is taking Sunak to persuade his MPs to go along with it is time that is wiped away with Labour. They don't need to do that. When Labour come to power, all of these negotiations and agreements will just chug along behind the scenes because there is negligible objection to them within his own party. As soon as negotiations are concluded and agreements found, he'll just put it to Parliament and they'll go, yeah, brilliant, thanks. Obviously, they're not going to run counter to the views of vital voters. How's that for alliteration? Views of vital voters. But it is only the voters who are presenting any serious breaks to progress. Nothing internal within the Labour Party. But the Conservatives have got more friction within their party than within their voter base. How else to explain why Sunak cannot even say that being part of Horizon is a no-brainer? Something that his predecessor actually tried to take the EU to court over to get access to. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.